What's up guys, Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be talking about building muscle versus building strength and what is the difference. This is a video posted by Picture Fit on YouTube, and I was recommended to watch it. So I have not watched it through yet, but it is concise. It's about 7 minutes long, and it seems to have a lot of credibility behind it based on the views and the like to dislike ratio and whatnot, and the channel size, not that that is always an indicator of credibility, but anyways, we're going to get into it.
Many of us, especially us guys, decide to take on the illustrious goal of physical self-betterment in the hopes of building muscle. In turn, building muscle has the added benefit of making us stronger, or so we've been told. The adage, the dude with the biggest muscles should be able to lift the biggest weights. Now, there is some truth to that. Being stronger do to an extent require more muscle, and having more muscle generally means more strength. Especially beginners, it's a guarantee that you will get stronger and bigger once you start lifting, since any type of extensive muscle stimulation will invoke some degree of muscle hypertrophy and strength gains just from the novelty of training itself. However, although it is unlikely to increase one completely without the other, it is possible to train specifically for one. Doing so would indeed improve one more than the other due to some physiological differences in which we will be discussing in this video.
Yeah, so one thing to note off the bat is there's definitely a reason why bodybuilders look the way they do and strength athletes look the way they do. Like, why is it that bodybuilders, to be honest, are just objectively far more muscularly developed, despite the fact that if they actually got under a 1 rep max, they may not be able to do even close to the amount as a much smaller, proportionally, at least lean tissue wise, power lifter, but yet the power lifter is going to smoke them in a bench press, a deadlift, a squat. Some of this does come down to the training style as well as the psychoactive effects leveraged by the compounds in question used for their performance enhancing endeavors and whatnot, which will probably be a side tangent from this guy's video because I highly doubt he's going to get into that side of things, but let us continue.
First, let's dig a bit into strength adaptations. Strength gains derive heavily through the creation of additional contractile proteins, actin and myosin, which increases total contraction. This is achieved through a sufficient training stimulus, like lifting weights, and sufficient nutrient intake, like eating more protein. Strength can also dramatically increase, especially in beginners, through simple practice. As all of us know, starting any new physical skill isn't easy, and we often exert much more effort and energy to start out. Resistance training is no different. As you become more efficient with your technique and form in something like the squat, then you'll be able to effectively squat much heavier weights. There are also neuromuscular strength adaptations, like increasing motor unit recruitment and rate coding, or the ability and rate in which your nervous system signal your muscles to voluntarily contract.
This is huge, and it also plays a very significant role on performance enhancement outcomes, like whatever you were using in a cognitive aspect. This is not just from a nootropic like alpha GPC, stuff like that, which can definitely help, and I highly recommend implementing. Is why I use Gorilla Mind Smooth on a daily basis, upwards of 1,200 milligrams of alpha GPC, very, very useful in a gym, as well as in a cognitive health / performance context, information retention, etc. But again, the performance enhancing drug element of it, the choices of anabolics, how androgenic is it, what kind of psychoactive effects can it downstream have, where it allows you to then be more aggressive on the weights, more recruit more motor units, and ultimately be able to disproportionately lift more weights than you otherwise would be able to on a less ideal compound that is more targeted towards pure protein expression. That is the kind of thing that I talk about often on my channel, and is obviously has a lot of overlap with what he's talking about here.
Consistent training can improve this as well. And lastly, there's the matter of biomechanics, which we won't be able to fully analyze since it takes quite a bit of explanation far past the scope of this topic. In short, there might be a biomechanical advantage based on your body structure, which influences things like moment arms and levers that can impact the amount of force applied on any given load. Now about muscle growth. Similar to strength gains, increasing contractile proteins will also increase muscle mass. This is known as myofibrillar hypertrophy. Another hypertrophy concept exists, however, that supposedly benefit muscle size more so than strength. This is called sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, a prevailing theory in which other non-contractile protein components like fluids, glucose, and sarcoplasmic organelles create a swelling effect that leads to larger muscles beyond that of myofibrillar hypertrophy. Now, we don't exactly know how sarcoplasmic hypertrophy works, and much of the current literature is quite convoluted. That being said, I would kindly refer you to Greg Nuckols' article on this matter, which I'll link in the description if you're interested in a more detailed analysis. But in short, specific training might, but not for sure, increase sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and specific changes to the fiber itself, like fiber diameter, thickness, and energy preference, which could impact muscle size relative to strength. But again, a great deal of uncertainty exists on this matter. But the one thing that is much more certain is which training method suits which goal best. For muscle growth, undoubtedly the biggest training focus will be total work volume. In the most basic sense, total work volume is the amount of sets times the amount of reps times intensity, or the amount of weight you lift. The goal would be to accumulate as much volume as you reasonably can, and continue to increase volume session by session, week by week, and so on. You can do so by adding more sets, more reps, more intensity, or adjustments of all three. Typically, bodybuilders shoot for 3 to 5 sets of 8 to 12 reps with a moderate intensity, since it's kind of the sweet spot for accumulating volume at a relatively short amount of time. However, studies have shown that doing as many as 100 reps per set, or even just 2 to 5 reps per set, can indeed achieve similar muscle gains as long as total volume was the same.
Hey, this is almost like devolving into the whole like RPE slash, working sets, debates slash debacles that occur online. And, I feel like it's been overcomplicated in the past few years. There are a lot of good sources of information on this kind of stuff. Like Renaissance periodization is a very good resource for this kind of information. It can be a bit, like complicated for individuals, like on the face of things, but at the end of the day, when you get down to like brass tacks on like what is recommended, it's not very hard to figure out like how to titrate volume accordingly based on, your increased demands slash, goals. And I think people overcomplicate it with like, oh, like how much, reps in reserve should I do with this? And how much, that's where I think people can become a bit more confused than before they went in when they, watch channels like Renaissance periodization, for example. But I think they've been doing a good job more recently of like simplifying certain matters to make it more like idiot proof. Because at the end of the day, training it's not that fucking complicated. It's like go in the gym, deploy, progressive overload, increase your volume accordingly based on when you're trying to grow. It's not fucking rocket science, lift with good form, full extension, full contraction, eccentric, concentric, get a bit of a mix up your, isolation movements and compound movements, get like a mix of both. Don't go above and beyond to a point that you're fatiguing yourself and preventing you from getting, high quality work done at the next workout. And on the other side of the spectrum, don't be so fucking lazy that you don't actually make progress. It's just like simple stuff. But anyway.
Strength, however, relies on volume much less. By far the most important piece of the strength puzzle, outside of practice, is simply intensity. In the same studies showing 100 reps achieving similar muscle growth as 5 rep sets, the researchers also found that in the case of strength, the lower rep group, which worked with much higher intensities, achieved by far the highest strength gains.
Yeah, like one thing I can say for certain, just through anecdotal experience is that, and obviously, there's the shit he's literally talking about to reinforce what he's saying, but even personally, when I've done like I don't like doing lower rep stuff because it like makes me very paranoid about injuring myself. Like I used to do, a lot of ego lifting back in my early 20s and shit, and it was just like dumb. It was like maybe like 1 or 2 years I did like really dumb ego lifting where I'd, bench, try and hit like 1 rep maxes. I'd deadlift like fucking, 2 to 3 reps with like not good form. I would do like squats that were like barely to parallel. Just like, we all did dumb shit when we first started. But again, like when I trained in those low rep ranges though, it was a lot easier to gain strength than it was when I was doing like 12 to 15 reps or something and thinking about hypertrophy mostly. The strength gains came across a lot easier when I was in that low rep, like 4 to 6 rep count, for example. So there's definitely something to be said about this in my opinion. Obviously a lot of the research kind of reinforces this as well.
One study also found that similar strength gains in the squat and bench press can be achieved with just doing one single set compared to doing 5 sets when both groups employed the same intensity. Simply put, if you want to lift heavier weights, then you have to train heavy. There's really no way around it. Common strength programs would have you working within the 85 to 100% 1RM range, with 1RM being the maximum weight you can lift just once. Now, of course, most of us probably want to get stronger and build muscle simultaneously. That's where a solid and balanced program comes in handy. Typically, that means finding a middle ground, such as working with moderately heavy intensities while shooting for more volume, or splitting your program to focus on one aspect at a time. If you need help figuring out what works best for you, then please come check out our PictureFit Discord community, where many of our great minds can help you out. Other than that, that's about it.
Okay, to be honest, I was expecting a little bit of a different discussion, but I guess this was like pretty good, like newbie 101 information, introducing the concepts behind, if you're trying to, focus on hypertrophy, volume is the name of the game. If you're trying to focus on strength, it's more about your intensity, the, heavy weights and shit, going on the lower rep count. And having a hybrid of the two, I think, is advantageous to be a broad spectrum, like well-rounded athlete, trying to gain muscle and size, but also trying to, build up and reinforce like motor learning patterns and kind of like, become very, proficient with certain movements and get, very, very good at recruiting a fuck ton of motor units in order to snap weights up and shit. You become a very versatile athlete in that you can be disproportionately strong, but also like pretty big at the same time. It's probably like an ideal best of both worlds approach realistically, unless you just like don't give a fuck whatsoever about performance and all you care about is looking like a beach body. Then maybe your training is going to differ a bit. But I mean, in general, I feel like having a mix of the two, some shit, very, focus on heavy weights, compound movements and, isolation work and, having a kind of like broad spectrum hybrid of the two in your programs and titrating up the volume accordingly when you're trying to focus on hypertrophy. That's sort of like the basic stuff I feel like kind of surrounding these concepts. And, it's cool to elucidate it in a way that's kind of like easy to wrap your head around though, with these like cartoon images and whatnot. So, cool video by PictureFit. I wasn't sure what to expect. I hadn't watched it going into it, but some good introductory information. And again, strength versus muscle, like when it comes to PEDs and whatnot, there's definitely a huge difference in terms of if you're just trying to go for pure protein expression with a total lack of like a very minimal gain on your strength. Anyone is intentionally trying to avoid strength, but sometimes compound selection will put you in a scenario where you're not really leveraging the androgenicity component of a exogenous hormone regimen. When you shut yourself down, you have such a lack of androgenic signaling / psychoactive components that it may otherwise result in you gaining like decent amounts of lean tissue with a relative lack of increase in strength. This is like the kind of thing you see with like DECA, for example. It's not a bad drug. It's actually great for hypertrophy, but for strength, it's not the best. You might see something like an anadrol, which makes you like instantly strong, basically. Is it going to make you gain more muscle than nandrolone? No, it's not. However, it is going to make you literally become, potentially instantly stronger after you pop an A-bomb. So this is the kind of stuff where the downstream psychoactive effects through its satellite interaction with different receptors in the body and different processes can result in, increased aggression, increased motor unit recruitment, like whatever it is. And you've kind of got to make decisions based upon your goals as opposed to what is the best cycle, your bro at the gym told you he likes. You should be choosing based upon your sport, your, performance outcome you're seeking. Whatever it is you're looking to get, you have to choose accordingly based on that and not make arbitrary decisions based upon what others have told you is the, like bro sick thing to do. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed that, a little bit of a, revisiting the basics, I guess. Cool video. Check out PictureFit on YouTube. The video is called Building Muscle versus Building Strength. What's the difference? Drop a like on it. Helps the engagement in the algorithm. As far as here, drop a like here as well. Comment helps the algorithm here. It's much appreciated. Like, subscribe, check out my blog. MorePlatesMoreDates.com. Follow me on Instagram at MorePlatesMoreDates, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic. All telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. Get high quality oversight from doctors who know what they're fucking talking about when it comes to interpreting biomarkers and creating individualized protocols based on your specific needs rather than creating a cookie cutter protocol based around nothing, where they're just trying to make a markup on medication, kick you out the door with their test, HCG and astrazole. You don't want to end up at a clinic like that. You want doctors who actually care about you and make their money on the consult services rather than marked up medications. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Thank you guys for watching. And as well as my recommended diet model for taking advantage of providing the substrate to actually fuel these processes and get stronger and bigger, as well as anything else I'm associated with, it is all down in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.